I was planning on it.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we can. I hope we get a good turnout there too. Since you know, since Ray's not going to be at either one, and I hope Travis will show up tonight here too, and tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I've got a question that's weird.
Okay.
What I was looking for Celeste's last name. I know it
Cracky.
begins with a K, and I can't remember the rest of it.
Kracke.
K R E
ACKE.
C K E. Thank you.
And she pronounces it cracky. And I have no idea what kind of name that is, you know.
I'm just waiting until 7 o'clock to let folks in.
Okay.
Yeah. We have Craig B trying to join us. So,
well, if we have a decent turnout,
okay, I think we're okay to let Craig in and then maybe call the meeting and give folks a few minutes.
Yeah, I agree. We can give it 2 minutes or so.
should we go ahead and call the meeting to order? We do have a.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or I will. So, Climate Advisory Committee called to order.
And I'll take minutes and kind of quick summary notes as we go, just to highlight some of the main topics.
And anybody who's not, you know, anybody who take question or take notes on everybody. I mean, take notes on questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember what was asked.
I know RCTV is recording, but I'll also record locally just in case as well.
Okay. Well, that'll give you something to put on the web if you care to.
Right, exactly. Let me turn that on.
Recording in progress.
It's Travis. Great.
Hey, Travis.
Evening, Travis.
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry. Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Andrew, are we recording now? Is it already started?
It is, yeah.
Cool. I got a question to ask you offline, unrelated to what we're talking about tonight. So
no worries.
Craig, just for your situational awareness, we're giving you a few more minutes before we start to see if anyone else joins us.
Should we just go ahead and start?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. We might have a few people on YouTube or at home watching, so I think we can go ahead and get started.
Craig can get special treatment though. So, but question is, Craig, I'm going to share my screen. Back up. All right, so this is a meeting of the Climate Advisory Committee. We're talking about the proposed bylaw to ban polystyrene food service items, and we'll be going through what that means, what the bylaw does, what it doesn't do, and what the intention is for Reading. So this slide is a summary, it's an overview, and the regulation statement here: food establishments within the town shall be prohibited from using or distributing disposable food service containers made from foam polystyrene or rigid polystyrene or polystyrene cutlery or other polystyrene single-use disposable products. That is the regulation. I mean, that's the only statement of regulation in the bylaw. That statement is from the bylaw, and the bolded items, the food establishments, the food service containers, and the polystyrene definitions are in the bylaw as well. And we'll be going through what that means. So the purpose of this bylaw is to limit the distribution of these polystyrene food service items by food establishments in the town, and to encourage the food establishments to switch to similar items made of healthier or more environmentally friendly materials, or to switch to reusable food service items for that purpose, or to adopt other approaches that don't require containers or utensils like that. There are limitations on this. This bylaw does not limit service items made of other materials, including other plastics, and we're going to be talking about other plastics. It does not apply to prepackaged food or beverage products that are bought from another supplier. So if a food establishment is providing something that they purchased that was already prepackaged, that food item in that package can be sold as is. It does not apply to food service items that are sold to individuals for their own use, and it doesn't refer to things that are not food service items. So we'll go through this. So what is polystyrene? Polystyrene is a particular type of plastic. It's labeled with a 6 or a PS6. You may be familiar with plastics, how plastics are labeled. This little recycle symbol with a number in the middle of it identifies what the plastic material is. It'll be stamped somewhere on whatever the plastic is. This polystyrene comes in two forms, actually. There's a foam version and a rigid version. The foam version is blown polystyrene and expanded polystyrene. It's sometimes called styrofoam, although styrofoam is actually just a limited product from Dow Chemicals that's used for insulation and packing and so forth. For our purposes, and in the bylaw, foam polystyrene is used to make cups and bowls, plates and trays, clamshell containers, meat trays, and egg cartons. Rigid polystyrene is a clear plastic. It's more, I guess, what you would think of in plastic. It's generally used to make clear clamshell containers, clear cups, plates, straws, lids, utensils, or colored, but they'll be you can identify rigid polystyrene usually because it's strong and it's stiff, but it's brittle. So that's the two kinds of products that are being banned in this bylaw. So what's the problem? polystyrene is based on styrene, which is a neurotoxin and a probable carcinogen. It's the only plastic used in food packaging that is based on a carcinogen. And the polystyrene rosin usually contains some amount of residual styrene that can leach out of the plastic. And styrene leaching increases with the temperature and with the foods like alcohol and oils or fat. So these are the very type of foods that you might expect to find packaged in something that you get, like in a restaurant. Polystyrene harms wildlife. Now, all plastics harm wildlife, but the foam form of polystyrene in particular is often mistaken for food by domesticated and wild animals. It breaks down the polystyrene, both the foam and the solid form break down through mechanical. They just crumble. It's not biodegradable. It just breaks down through mechanical action of just breaking into pieces, of photodegradation, and the process can take 200 years to complete. Polystyrene is almost never recycled because of its low value. The bulky foam form is not accepted in our curbside recycling program. The rigid form, even when it is collected, is never recycled. So this particular kind of plastic is a problem for human health. It's a problem for animal health. It's a problem for not being recyclable. So this is why we're picking on this particular kind of product. Now we're talking really we're also talking about disposable items. We're talking about single-use items. These are a few of them. We'll have several examples in this discussion this evening about what we're talking about, the products that we're trying to eliminate and the products that can be used as alternatives. This gives some examples of foam cups and trays and plastic lids and packaging and so forth. And again, marked with this usually with this 6 symbol to identify that it's polystyrene. There are a lot of alternatives. We're going to talk quite a bit about alternatives this evening. Among them are other materials, in either paper materials, cardboard materials, foil, plant-based materials, meaning and compostable containers, so things that are made out of cornstarch or bamboo or whatever, and a number of other kinds of plastics. So this identifies some of these other plastics, like the plastic 1, with the 1 symbol here is polyethylene. The plastic 5 is polypropylene. These are commonly used for food service items, but they are very much recyclable, and these are the kind of things that we should be putting in our curbside recycle bin. So there are the only one that we're really on this list here that we're trying to eliminate is the number 6 polystyrene. This is not a new idea. There are 47 polystyrene regulations that already exist in Massachusetts and the various cities and towns in Massachusetts. The earliest towns to pass bylaws and laws to ban the polystyrene go back to 2012. So we've been at this a decade, building up various laws to ban it. The earliest ones very much focused on the styrofoam or the foam packaging. Some of these laws ban the sale of these products. Some of them ban the distribution from food service businesses like we're doing. Some of them do both. And the foam polystyrene is also already banned in several states, in Maryland and Maine and Vermont. There's a list here. Some of them are actually coming online this year and a couple years to come. So there's quite it's about time for Reading to think about this. We last dealt with the issue of plastic with our checkout bag bylaw. This is our next step, trying to eliminate these kinds of single-use plastic items. So here's a couple of items, definitions from, this is from the bylaw, the food establishments and the food service containers. What you'll see is that it's addressing generally food establishments means any business that's stores, prepares, packages, serves, and vends or otherwise provides food for human consumption. And this CMR 59002 is a state health regulation. So a lot of it are things that are provided through restaurants or mobile vendors or caterers that are likely to be provided as part of a takeout service or a delivery service. But a lot of them are also provided in-house. You may be, especially for fast food, restaurants and things where you be provided with forks and cups and so forth that are disposable. So part of this is also trying to reduce the amount of plastic and especially polystyrene, single-use plastic items. And so we're trying to, the bylaw applies to our businesses, but the thought process applies to all of us to think about what we are receiving, whether we need it, and what we would do ourselves. So that it also applies, though, beyond these businesses. It applies to all the kind of places where we're likely to run into the same kind of food distribution materials. So in the schools and farmers markets, in our civic and religious centers, any building owned by the town, and any establishment basically requiring a permit to operate in accordance with the state regulation. And the items that we're talking about are the ones that I mentioned earlier that are available in these two forms of polystyrene. So it's takeout, packaging for takeout foods, leftovers for partially consumed meals, and it's plates, cups, bowls, trays, lidded containers, straws, cups, and cup lids and cutlery. Any single-use disposable package used for uncooked foods prepared on the premises, as well as disposable catering trays. So these are the key definitions from the bylaw. Again, the regulation, that food establishments are prohibited from using these kinds of items that are, if they're made from polystyrene. Again, the exemptions that the following are items are exempt from this bylaw. Any prepackaged products, food products that are bought or packaged by a supplier other than the food establishment. So again, if what is being provided was purchased in a plastic package, that's, even if it's polystyrene, we're not asking these food establishments to dump out those packages and put it in other packages. Those are exempt. Those food establishments are not accountable for those particular items. Also, it's any polystyrene food product that, food service item, such as picnic supplies that are purchased by individuals for their own use or or functions on their own property, are exempted. So we are not restricting the sale of these items, especially like in bulk when you buy picnic supplies and forks and plates and so forth. We're not trying to constrain that in this bylaw. And then other items that have nothing to do with food service, like packaging peanuts and freezer chests, are not affected by this. Part of the reasoning for this is that the bulk of the material we're trying to just eliminate is items that come with takeout and delivery and restaurant services. That's much more. There's a lot more of that kind of material that we receive through those kind of venues than what we go out and buy from somewhere for our own purposes. The enforcement is through the health department, the public health director, Reading's public health director it's the enforcement officer. If compliance with this law is not feasible because of unavailability of alternatives or economic hardship, then the director can grant a waiver of not more than 6 months. If it continues to be a problem, the director can grant a second 6-month waiver if so requested. And we'll talk in a moment about the timeline for this bylaw. Penalties under this bylaw are mild compared to the typical bylaw penalties. If you read Reading's bylaws, where we are trying to drive a certain behavior, we're not trying to punish anybody. This is not intended to be punitive or especially difficult for our businesses. There will be no more than one penalty within a 15-day period, and if there's some issue with that, the business believes that's not fair for them, they can request a hearing with the director, and of course they always also have the recourse to the courts if they want to go that way. The director may promulgate additional rules and regulations, might be about training that's required by businesses or whatever. And the bylaw takes effect 6 months after it's posted by the town clerk. Good. So here's the schedule. If town meeting starts on the 14th, it's over within 2 or 3 weeks. Last possible date is that Monday after Thanksgiving. If the town meeting adopts the bylaw, then it has to be submitted to the state for approval. The state has to approve all bylaws from towns, and that process takes 2 to 3 months. And then when they notify us, then the bylaw is then posted by our town clerk, and that starts the clock on the 6-month implementation period. The 6-month implementation period will be used for communication and making sure that everybody knows what's happening and what they're expected to do about it. We did this as well with the checkout bag law. We had a 6-month implementation period, and at the end of that 6-month period, that's when the bylaw takes effect. Then, for those businesses that cannot really comply at that point, they may request a waiver. And may be granted a 6-month waiver, and after that, they may request a second 6-month waiver. So we're talking, if without the waivers, the bylaw actually becomes effective in the summer of 2023. The waivers could extend that for a particular business, a year. That our experience with these kind of waivers with the checkout bag bylaw was that we had a handful of businesses that did request a waiver the first time. I think we had one business that requested a waiver the second time. So alternatives. We want to talk now about what the alternatives are. We think that the alternatives are neither difficult nor expensive, or maybe really very little change in cost, well, a change in products. I'm going to turn this over to Genna to go through those what those alternatives are and talk about the processes that we've already followed to contact our businesses. Are you ready to do that, Genna?
Yes, thank you, Dave.
Okay, so just tell me as you want to flip. I'll flip the slides for you here.
Sounds good. So this is a slide that we've already encountered, which simply demonstrates which type of products are going to be no longer allowed to be served with food. You can go on to the next slide, Dave. So we've examined a handful of different alternatives. Some are paper-based products, some are foil-based products. And in addition, we found a couple of other items, but typically the alternatives weren't very difficult to find. There seems to have been significant push by the commercial sector to put out alternatives to the polystyrene in the last decade or so. So even when we were examining publications from 5 years ago, there's a significant change in terms of availability as well as the price. The price has come down for a lot of these products. Next slide, Dave. So a few examples of plastics that are still acceptable are kind of shown here. It's not necessarily that we're banning all plastics. We're focused on just this number 6, the polystyrene products. So plastics are still completely fine. Next slide, Dave. So, for example, we could look at the cups. There are classical polystyrene cups. When you compare it to the polystyrene paper cups, the cost is within a penny or so per each individual item. Now, I know that the paper cups aren't necessarily the end-all solution, particularly when it comes to hot items like coffee. People will either double stack them or they'll have paper sleeves, and we'll address that in the upcoming slide when we do kind of an overall comparison of everything. But just to get a sense, just to get a feel of the cost associated with each item, there's about a penny difference between polystyrene and the paper cups being a little bit cheaper. Next slide, Dave. So in terms of the plastic cups, which are shown in the middle and on the right-hand side, versus the polystyrene, there is potential for cost savings, actually, depending on the type of plastic that you choose. And then the additional benefit of this particular plastic that's shown here is that it's recyclable, whereas polystyrene is not necessarily recyclable. Next slide, Dave. Another example is the takeout containers. I'm sure we've all encountered these at some point in time. So the polystyrene one on the left-hand side is a little bit cheaper than what is a compostable sugar cane. And this is like the ultimate green replacement, if you will, because these are compostable. You don't even have to recycle them. They fall apart and are biodegradable. And on the right-hand side, we have the aluminum foil containers, which are end up being comparable in price to the polystyrene one. In fact, a couple of pennies cheaper. Next slide, Dave. Similarly, the clear containers, which are typically used for like salads, at least that's what I've encountered them. So once again, pennies difference between all these different ones. So the middle one being 2 pennies more, but again, this is something that can be recycled. The cardboard, a penny more, can be composted. Next slide, please. Forks, we've taken a look at some different forks. The rigid polystyrene one are pretty popular, but the replacements in this particular chart show that they do end up costing 2 to maybe 6 more pennies per each individual container, 6 being the compostable ones, 2 more pennies being for the ones that are potentially recyclable. Although we do have additional data in the summary slide where we show that the cost can be comparable. It just depends on where you're purchasing them. Next slide, please. So similarly with lids, sometimes the lids end up being actually a little bit more expensive than the typical compostable ones or the standard recyclable plastic. I have had an encounter with an individual who owns a food establishment downtown. And when we were discussing this type of a ban, they said that we looked over a couple of different items that they had, and the only really polystyrene product that they had was the lids. And they said they're going to have absolutely no issues replacing them. It might cost them a penny more. So next slide, please. So while this table might be a little bit difficult to read, I can sort of go through line by line. When we look at the white foam cups, so first of all this data has been collected from a single large restaurant supplier. which is webstaurantstore.com. There's another one that's very similar, and I think they're owned by the same company. I've also looked at a couple of other places, but they were very difficult to navigate relative to this one. And this just sort of gives you an overview where the polystyrene products are highlighted in gray, and the alternatives that we're proposing are highlighted in well, they're not highlighted, they're just in white, plain white background. So if we look at the foam cup versus an 8-ounce coffee cup and the sleeve, when we break it down to price per unit, when you include the cup and the sleeve for the cup, the difference ends up being about, well, it's a penny or 1.3 of a penny per given item. We've also looked at the larger cups, so a 20-ounce white foam cup versus a 20-ounce paper cup for coffee with the sleeve. There's actually savings of about half a penny for that particular combination. With a polystyrene plate, we've compared it to the sugar cane plate, which is compostable. The difference is 2 pennies. So the sugar cane is 2 more pennies in terms of price. It's not a significant deviation from what the current cost of the plates are. We've compared big black polystyrene takeout containers to the big sugar cane takeout containers. The sugar cane ones ended up being a penny cheaper, actually. And similarly, we looked at the small clamshells, the polystyrene ones versus the sugar cane ones. And the sugar cane ones ended up being 2.8 pennies more expensive per item. And then examining forks, for example, what we've been able to find is that when comparing the polystyrene ones to the polypropylene ones, the difference between them was 0.3 cents. So it ended up being 0.3 cents more per item. Whereas if you're purchasing it as a pack, which includes a knife, a fork, a spoon, and I think a napkin and like some salt and pepper, the non-polystyrene products ended up being cheaper by about 0.2 of a cent. So roughly speaking, if you tally it up, it's almost a wash, if not under 5 cents. So we're not talking about nickels and dimes here. We're talking about pennies in terms of replacing some of these components or all of them. Next slide, Dave. So I think this is more or less the conclusion slide. So Dave, I'll hand this back off to you.
Okay. Yeah. So this is just to let you know, how whatever your views are, this is how you can identify your representatives at town meeting and contact them. And we will be so this presentation has been will be on RCTV, or it is on RCTV, and we're also recording it so that we can put it on the website, so you can look at that, and the presentation itself is also, I believe, available on the town website. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then that's it for our talking about it, and we'll open it up for any questions. Yes. So are there any? I guess we've really only got, unless Craig has a question. Not hearing any. I think that's it for our presentation this evening. Anything else, Andrew, that we need to?
No, I'll just note that we'll do it again tomorrow night at the Reading Public Library in Community Room A, again, starting at 7 p.m. We also scheduled a third daytime forum on Thursday, the 27th at, I believe that's 3 p.m., David. So stay tuned for those. We have the information available on the website. comments can be provided to the Climate Action Committee or myself to gather them and summarize them, and hopes to answer any comments, questions, or concerns. But I think other than that, that's it from me.
All right, thank you. And that's it for the Climate Advisory Committee. So I'm going to, I guess we'll adjourn the meeting of the Climate Advisory Committee, and that's it. And invite everybody to have a good evening.
Recording stopped.
Great. Well, thank you, CAC, and thank you, Craig, for joining us. So,
Thank you.
Good evening.
Travis, did you have a question for me?
Yeah, mine totally personal in nature, but we have a tree, and I was just curious. It is on the easement for the town between our sidewalk and the road, and it is literally rotting. Limbs are falling, and I was curious who I should speak with in the town instead of.
I can forward you
someone else.
tomorrow the tree warden's email, and he's at that starting point.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Do you have my email? Probably in your inbox somewhere. But
I do. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right. Well, have a good night, you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Should we
Thank you.
call the meeting adjourned, or?
I think David did.
Have a good night, folks.
Bye, guys.
Later all.